We're at East 3rd Street now, and this is the approximate area where the General Slocum loaded. This park replaced the area where the pier was. The General Slocum, it was all decked out in flags and banners and painted white. You know, their finery and women with their dresses and hats. It was quite an event.
According to the day's program, the Slocum would leave the pier as George Mauer's 10-piece band played Unser Kaiser Friedrich by von Blon. The time was 9:40 a.m.
We're going under the Williamsburg Bridge now, the Willie B. It was here in 1904, probably just opened around that time. Many of these buildings were not there, but the river was much more crowded than it is right now, with different types of sand barges and things of that nature. I recall as a child going up to the same route, actually, on an excursion boat. The school was let out for the day, as the children were in the General Slocum.
The Slocum had been inspected in the spring of 1904, 5 weeks before the fire. Inspector Lundberg went through the ship with one of the mates and essentially performed by all accounts, a perfunctory inspection. Poked a few life preservers with his pencil, but never took any of them down, and essentially pronounced the boat fully safe, fully ready to operate for the 1904 season.
The night before the boat sailed, they brought down barrels of glasses, and they packed the glasses in hay. And they stored them in a little room close to the bow of the boat, where they also kept the oil for the lanterns. And instead of taking the barrels off the Slocum, they left them on there. That's where the fire started, in the hay.
On deck, little Germany celebrated the launch of a perfect day. But in the hold, a ticking time bomb was about to explode. On the 15th of June 1904, the General Slocum set out on a Sunday school picnic excursion up New York City's East River. The passengers enjoyed the perfect weather, oblivious to the growing danger below.
Well, the fire's origin is still, and probably always will be, ultimately a mystery. But we do know that the fire started in what was called the lamp room, which was just a forward cabin below decks that was used for storage. Pretty much everything from oily rags to cans of kerosene to lamps to bags of charcoal, all manner of stuff.
It was unusually crowded in the forward cabin, where barrels packed with hay contained drinking glasses for the commissary. At 6:30 a.m., Walter Payne had prepared for the Slocum's day trip to Long Island. As the porter, his first job was to put kerosene in the lanterns that would light the cabins above deck. Without realizing the danger, he'd created a combustible environment just waiting for a spark. Later, at 9:30 a.m., 6-month-old Adela Liebenau and her mother Anna were among the Lutheran congregation waiting excitedly on the General Slocum's upper deck promenade. Although too young to retain personal memories of that day, for the rest of her life she would be surrounded by reminders of the 15th of June.
It was just a Sunday school picnic. I've been very lucky all my life, and I think I was just lucky then. There's no reason why I should have survived any more than anybody else. My mother and father are members of the church, second generation Americans, but maybe they considered that we were immigrants.
On the morning of the 17th annual Lutheran Church picnic, Adela, her parents, 6-year-old sister Helen, 3-year-old sister Anna, aunts, uncles and cousins all headed down to the pier for the General Slocum's 9:45 departure.
I gathered that they were carrying things in the hold that should not have been there.
That spark in that forward storage room might have been never heard from again. Most sparks just simply self-extinguish. This one found a unique environment, a warm room, the hay on the ground, and enough oxygen to keep it going in what's called the emergent smoldering phase, like the tip of a match that's been blown out.
And don't forget, this Slocum had been around quite a few years, and this was a routine cruise for the Slocum. The people along here could actually hear the music, hear the children, and it looked like such a joyous occasion as the boat worked its way up the river.
At 9:53 a.m., passenger Charles Lang spotted a pub he frequented. At that moment, he thought he overheard someone say fire, although he couldn't see a fire.
It happened just above Hell's Gate, and that's one of the worst areas of that river, currents and so on.
The Slocum was approaching a stretch of the river called Hell Gate, named after the powerful currents and sharp hidden reefs.
One tide runs into Long Island Sound that comes down Hell Gate, and the other tide runs out from the Atlantic, so it's actually, you know, the same waters fighting one another. Nobody goes through the gate without a great deal of respect for the dangers.
At 9:58, the Slocum entered Hell Gate.
As far as we know, this is about where the first indication there might have been a fire aboard, but the captain would not have known it. You can see the white water here on the top, and the whirlpool's actually spinning around. There's always a constant 4 to 5 knot current running around here.
The Slocum continued through the S-curve and around Hallett's Point. Workers from a stone yard noticed smoke coming from the steamer, but the passengers didn't appear concerned.
I think Knickerbocker Steamship Company was going to give them free chowder or something like that. And so when they originally smelled smoke, they thought there was the chowder burning over.
While the passengers misinterpreted the initial signs of danger, down below, in the belly of the ship, a lethal mixture of oil and hay needed only more oxygen to ignite. 12-year-old Frankie Poditsky saw smoke coming from the forward cabin hatch. Deckhand John Coakley told him to clear off and took matters into his own hands.
Anybody trained in fire safety knows you don't pull that door open. He had never been trained in fire safety, never experienced a fire drill, and so he grabbed the handle of that door and jerked it open. Suddenly the fire jumps from just a smoldering ember to an actual live fire.
At 10 o'clock, fire leapt into the engine room, sending the crew into a panic. Frankie Poditsky raced to the pilot house to alert Captain Van Schaik.
Do you remember the boy who started to yell about the fire?
A boy ran from downstairs, but nobody paid much attention.
They didn't believe him.
There's a story about a young boy yelling up to the captain about a fire.
There's so much smoke. I think the boat's on fire.
And he told him to get out of here and stop annoying him. He thought he was just playing a silly joke. Really a weird mixture. People screaming about the fire and others not even aware there was a fire. Music playing and everything else.
Coakley had been below deck for 3 minutes as the fire spread quickly.
This deckhand has no idea what to do. He tries to whap it out with a tarp. The tarp is tied down to the ground. He eventually drops a sack of coal on it, thinking that might smother it, and then he runs to go get help. By the time they show up to put out the fire, it's raging out of control because it's found really the ultimate thing for a fire, which is an unlimited source of oxygen.
A minute later, flames were seen for the first time on deck and panic erupted. It had been just 4 minutes since the first alarm, but already the inferno was rampaging upwards, trapping passengers, who would soon be faced with a terrifying choice: to brave the flames or the churning waters of Hell Gate.